So growing up in Birmingham, Alabama, there you go. The steepest hill in the city was called Elder Street. And Elder Street, we only went down Elder Street when we had to. And when we had to go down Elder Street is because on the other side was an all-you-can-eat buffet. Now, for those of you who know my family, we are not small people until I married my wife. We are not small people. There's not been an all-you-can-eat buffet that's ever made money off of us on the other side. And so we would drive down Elder Street in our Toyota Tercel, do what Millers do at an all-you-can-eat buffet, and then began the harrowing drive back. And I tell you that it's harrowing because we drove a Toyota Tercel. Anybody know Toyota Tercel? Tony knows. All right, so Tony, hold on a minute. My wife and I had a Honda Fit for a really long time, and this is the smallest car Honda made. Honda Fits had 130 horsepower. Any guess for what a Tercel had? 64, Tony. Less than half of the horsepower of a Honda Fit. All of us are piling into this Toyota Tercel, driving up Elder Street. This is the biggest hill I got right here. So my dad guns the car on the straightaway before we go up Elder Street, and we're going. And then Elder Street turns, and we got to drop the gear, and I'm praying in the back seat. Praying because I see the car, the revs going up, and the car slowing down. Praying and lamenting. Why did I eat that last piece of pie? This is going to be the end of us, of my family. The car's going to roll right back down the hill. And that's going to be the end. So what happens when your ride gives out? What happens when your ride gives out? And believe it or not, our Torah portion asks the exact same question, but a Tercel would have been a luxury item back then. Instead of 64 horsepower, you'd be lucky to have 1 ox power, right? And not just 1 ox power, that's if you got the premium package, right? Normally, you had 1 donkey power. And so the question with your 1 donkey power is what happens when the donkey gives out? What happens when you're going along, you got your donkey, you got your ox, and it collapses under its load? So there are 74 mitzvot in the Torah portion, which is a lot. This one begins with an if. And I want you to remember this. This is a hypothetical thing that could happen. So we're going to do this like the rabbis. We're going to say, if. All right, can you do that with me? If. All right, so if you're going along and you see a fellow Israelite with a donkey or an ox collapse beneath, you are required to help him lift it together. If you see this happen, you're required to help this guy lift his ox, lift his donkey. Fantastic. So then we got a rabbinic conversation about this hypothetical. It's a hypothetical. Rashi, some thousands of years later, 11th century French rabbi, asks, okay, so what does this mean? And really, why do we have that last word of the verse that you should help him raise it together, which is what the verse says. And Rashi teaches that the word together is there in the mitzvah because if this other guy does not help you lift up the donkey or the ox, then you are not required to help him. So let's just take a step back for a minute. What kind of guy does not help you help him? Do you follow this? So you're going along, you're doing all kinds of mitzvahs in your life. You see this guy who needs your help. You say, I'm going to help you. He says, great. I'm going to go to Old Country Buffet. Call me when you're done. I'll probably be eating some pie. What kind of guy does this, right? So Rashi says, if you come across this guy, of course it's a guy. You don't have to help him. Great. Now, you fast forward about 150 years later. You have another rabbi, Chizkuni, who's also a French rabbi and spends most of his career commenting on Rashi. And I tell you this because it's an expanded version of the question. Chizkuni says, okay, so what happens if you have a guy who walks away, but also, and I'm paraphrasing for a minute, and then I'm going to quote directly. What kind of guy does this? Not just walks away, but what kind of person overloads his ox? What kind of person overloads his donkey? How could somebody treat a person so badly? How could someone treat an animal so badly? What kind of person is this? And you might be thinking, oh, I know somebody just like that. I know. Have you, this is not me personally. Have you met my dad? Have you met my mother? No. Have you met my business partner who I haven't spoken to in 20 years? Have you met my boss? Have you met that colleague who I could not stand who drove me nuts? Have you gotten through middle school? You know exactly the kind of person I'm talking about because you've got them in your life and I've got them in my life. And the question is, what do you do with the people that take up so much of your headspace, so much of your heart space, when you've only got 64 horsepower to get up that road? What do you do with these people? Now, Cooney's got a really challenging answer that I'm going to share with you, but hold on, because I don't mean it literally. And it's not meant to be read literally. Because Cooney says, what do you do with this guy? You help him anyway. You help him anyway. What happens if you've got a story with him? What happens if you've got a history with him? You help him anyway, which is no easy feat. Now, what I'm not saying, to be clear, is that you pick the person, the people who weigh you down. That you pick the person, the people that take up your headspace, that take up your heart space. I'm not saying you write them a note. I'm not saying you write them a letter. All I'm saying is let's add another hypothetical for a moment. What could you do if you did run into them again? What could you do if they intersected with your life again? Could you, separate from them, could you begin a new story? That's what the mitzvah is about. Could you begin a new story? And I share this because my parents are celebrating how many years? Who was paying attention? 50 years of marriage. And I ran this by them. I can share this with all of you. I'm not going to embarrass them, but this is absolutely true. They are probably the happiest married couple I've ever met who's been together for 50 years. They're good. You guys got it. Mazel tov. And there you go. There you go. Oh, they can't do that in services. Hopefully they can get on a live stream. But even when you are happily married, there are still hard days. And there are still hard weeks. And there are still, God forbid, hard months. And if you've been in a long-term relationship with a spouse, with a sibling, with a parent, you know exactly what I mean. The question is, how can you make sure those days don't extend, and those weeks don't extend, and those months don't extend, and God forbid, those years or decades don't extend? And I share this with you because stories have a momentum to them. Stories have a way of telling themselves over and over and over again. And you know why? Because at the back of that story, you've got all kinds of figurative ammo that you are locked and ready to go for when you see them again, for when you meet again. And if they've passed, if you could have seen them again, if you could have shared your mind, if you could have shared your anger, if you could have shared your pain, this is exactly what I would say. And so it is no wonder that stories, hard stories, heartbreaking stories, difficult stories, tell themselves over and over again because you've got so much hurt and so much heaviness that you are carrying. And I'm not just talking about you now. I'm talking about me. I'm talking about all of us. I'm talking about the people in my life who weigh my head and who weigh down my heart. I remember talking to my dad about this. He said, this person's heavy in your life. This person's heavy in your life. You're never going to see them again. This person is heavy. How can you make them lighter for you? This is not about them. This is about you. This is not about them. This is about the weight that you are carrying. And if you are carrying something heavy in your head and in your heart, I want to pose to you another hypothetical, which is, what if you were compassionate if you saw them again? What if you were kind? What if you were open-hearted with them? What if just for you, you could make space for a new chapter in your life's story? What if you could live a little bit lighter? And that's the question I want to ask. I'm not going to ask you to do anything. Again, I'm not asking you to write them a letter. Don't text. Don't call. You might not even be able to. But I want them to have a lighter presence in your life. And the way that they can be lighter for you is with kindness in your heart, with compassion in your heart, with an open-heartedness that you can carry into this next moment of your life. We've got a new year coming up. We've got a new chapter coming up. I want it to be lighter for you. I want you in this new year to be free. Shabbat shalom. Good Shabbos.